It's Friday the 13th, everybody. Did you have an unlucky day or a good day? I'm going to say a little bit of both here. I've been messing around with these differential petcocks, trying to get them, testing them and making sure that they hold fluid. And focus. And I pretty well got them. They don't 100% hold gasoline. Been testing them with that and farting around with them, trying things and getting them to work better. But they won't 100% hold gasoline. They weep ever so slightly around where the part goes into this housing. They don't drip out of here or anything, but they just weep ever so slightly around that joint. This one is really, really pretty good. This one's a little bit worse. But I got it where, well, basically I gave up for the night. So I drained the gasoline out and I filled it up with a tiny bit of motor oil. And we'll see if it holds that overnight. Check it again in the morning. So far it has been. I kind of think it's going to, because like I said, it was so minimal, and to get anything to hold gasoline is pretty darn hard. But I think it'll hold oil. I was also getting this seal for the shifting rail shaft ready to go. You remember that's a leather seal we made. I'm going to put that in tomorrow. Basically the goal for the weekend is to finish putting all this together for good. Take it apart, seal everything up, seal the thread, the bolt threads, everything. Probably get this final ready, finish off things, make sure all the cotter keys are in and whatnot, and get this put back on here for good. That's assuming I can get I'm happy with how the petcocks are sealing up. Because I got McMaster's car stuff this week. I got some more little lock washer, O-rings and lock washers, because there's a couple of broken ones. So basically that combination will replace them. I got some cotton string to replicate this old packing that was in those bottom 3 bolts of from the transmission to differential. If you remember that from, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, I talked about that. Not that it's probably even needed, but heck, I'll put it in there. Why not? So I got that, so we can do that this weekend maybe. I don't know what else will work on. Probably just focusing on getting all that 100% done. And then if I got more time from there, then I'll tackle something else. But just taking it one step at a time. We'll check back in with you tomorrow. Dang it, do not quite hold oil. This front one is, but the rear one, between last night and it's a little after lunch here now on Saturday, it's dripped that much. So I mean, it's not quite holding oil 100%. So, that frustrates me a little bit. I suppose I'll have to try to monkey around with this a little bit more, see if I can get it to seal up just that little bit better. Because I really don't want oil leaks. I'm trying my best to prevent all of them. So we'll see what I can do here. I mean, it's not empty, but it's dripped just enough to be a nuisance. So I'll check back later. Oh, just when you think things were going smoothly. So I was putting this all assembly back on the transmission for good. Had the bolts tightened up, and then I put this rear plate on, just finger tight, or loosely on, to locate that pinion bearing. So then I could put in this. There's a jack bolt that goes in here to keep that bearing located, right? So I had those bolts tightened up, good to go. I go to snug up this jack bolt and tink, snapped right off on me. I mean, I wasn't even remotely tight. It was, you could see it was all oily. So it was cracked or whatever previously and just barely hanging on. Okay, great. So take it all back apart. Of course, it came right out because it really wasn't stuck in there. It just fatigued bolt broke. So dig all around Lawrence's shop here. Couldn't come up with the 1-inch jack bolt like this. Ran all around town. Of course, nobody had that either. Went to my house, dug through my junk. Couldn't come up with the right size. So I ended up just making one. Took a grade 8 bolt and ground the head down to match to make it look like a jack bolt. Well, it is a jack bolt now. So now I can go back to where it was, put it all back together again, and this one shouldn't snap off on me. Good news is I messed around with that petcock earlier today, and there again, it's been sitting in oil for probably at least a good 4 or 5 hours now, and so far no signs of leaking, so I think I got that problem licked. So I'll check back here in a little bit. We'll see if things keep going good or not. There, got it all in and nothing broke this time. So those 2 bolts are tightened up. Jack bolt is snug in against the bearing to keep that located. Jam nut is tight. So that assembly is done for good now. So now we can move on to the next thing, finally. I got that leather oil seal for the shifting rail and retainer all installed in there, so that should be good to go, so don't forget about that. I did get the cotter pin in the nut for that shaft. You can't see it at the moment, but I put that in, so that's done for good now. Basically, I'm just wrapping up a lot of little loose ends here today. It doesn't look like I got much done, but that's part of this whole restoration thing. Some days it looks like you got tons done. Some days it doesn't look like you got anything done, but you got to be very patient and just keep picking away at it. Things are going back together. So I got this all taken apart, cleaned up one final time, really good. Assembly lube on the Babbitt. Permatex on the threads of the bolts. The new lock washers and O-rings for this side. Some Permatex on the flange here. It actually looks like there's a ton in the video here, but there really isn't. It's just a tiny little bit just to seal everything off. And I just got done doing this whole process to the other side as well. So this whole assembly will be done for a little bit here. There, all back together. Axle's back in too, assembly lubed up, all the bearings and stuff, so that's all good to go. Everything is, all the bolts have been torqued down to a good 40 foot-pounds. I think that's plenty for what it's doing. Everything's beautiful. I'm very happy with this, going back together nicely. It's just a tiny little bit of ooze out of the Permatex on the outside. None, I'll emphasize that, none oozing out on the inside, so it's not going to get where it doesn't belong. I purposely put it towards the outside, so any ooze out would go to the outside. So once it's dry, I can clean that all up and you'll never even know. But yeah, it looks good. I'm happy with it. This assembly is together for good now, with the exception of pulling those axles out to lube up those felt seals when everything is painted. Other than that, this doesn't hopefully never have to come apart again. So that's a good thing. I think I'm going to tip this thing back up, fill those petcocks with some more oil, just that engine oil, was it 10W30 or whatever. Let them sit overnight, and then when I come out tomorrow, if they're still holding fluid without leaking by morning, I'm going to call them good. And then hopefully put this transmission assembly back on here for good. So it's starting to look like something's getting done around here. It's pretty exciting. Woohoo! No drips, no seeping. We got them to seal up. Cold little oil all last night, so I'm calling it good. Excellent news. We can get some more stuff done today. So we got quite a bit done today. So I started by wiping down all the insides of the transmission and all the insides of differential final drives with a oily rag, clean oily rag, to basically just get a film of oil on everything so nothing rusts between now and when the tractor actually gets put together. Once I had that done, I gave the surfaces for the transmission and differential, cleaned all them up one final time really well, sealed all that up with Permatex and the threads and all the bolts, sealed them all up, put the transmission back on, torqued all those bolts down to a good 20 pounds. And then we took and hung the assembly from the A-frame, set it on the table and took it off the engine stand. Reason being so I can put that shifting rail in from this backside, so we don't take the chance of messing up that leather seal since it's going that direction. Make life easier for that. So that's ready to go anytime. Basically, I just have to decide what, if anything, I want to do with that main shaft spline being worn. They're going to get more people's advice, and a lot of people are saying don't worry about it, just run it the way it is. So that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably just end up putting it all back together and leaving it. But just kind of still just checking out my options as far as fixing it. I cleaned up these pinion drive covers on both sides, so they're ready to go. I got to clean up the bolts for them yet next weekend. I cleaned up this transmission side cover, so that's ready to go. Same story, got to clean up the bolts next weekend. I've been working on cleaning up this differential top cover, not quite done with that yet, and same story with the hardware to go along with it. I got to clean up yet, but I think I'm going to call it a weekend here. We got pretty good progress. This is all together for good now, with the exception of this rear plate that's got to come off yet to put the main shaft in. So that's just on there. It's not sealed up yet. But yeah, I'm happy with how progress is going. We're getting some good stuff done, and we'll keep pecking away at it. It's a lot of these little piddly things towards the end to get all the loose ends tied up, but it's coming along good. I'm happy with it. So I'll check back with you guys next weekend.